Hello, underachievers.
Okay, first off, real quick, sorry but not sorry, I have a brand new song called 3 Day Headache. If you like pop punk, you'll love it. And I also have an album coming out March 8th, and you can grab a vinyl for that. And I'm touring the world, baby. I'm playing UK shows with Enter Shikari in February and doing a headline tour of the US in March and April, so grab your tickets.
So this is part 2 of a video that I've already made, so if you want to watch part 1, which you should, the link to that is in the description. But today we are answering more questions that cis people are too scared to ask trans people, so let's go. Does having sex make you dysphoric? If you asked me this 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, my answer will be very different. Currently where I'm at now, most of the time, no. 5 years ago, absolutely yes. I'd feel so uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to be looked at. I wouldn't even think about it. It would just be too distracting. The fact that, like, that should not be there and that should not be there. I could not even imagine having a sex life before I came out and started hormones. Even after I came out, like, between me coming out and me starting hormones was, like, a year. I would have never put myself in any position to be doing any of that because I was so uncomfortable with myself. I was only comfortable enough to start doing that when my voice had dropped a little bit, when I was on testosterone, and when I felt more, like, at peace within my own body. But before any of that, I could not even think about it. Top surgery, dude, was I mean, probably the best thing I've ever done for myself. Also the best thing I've done for my sex life. I will say that. I could be naked now.
Oh my god.
I don't have to constantly be thinking about the fact that, like, oh, I don't want people feeling what's under my binder, so, like, hugging them or, like, any form of intimacy would make me uncomfortable. But yeah, most of the time, no, I don't feel dysphoric about it. Medically transitioning has kind of allowed me to reframe how I see myself, obviously because I look very different and feel very different. But I'm always gonna be that guy that's like, this was the best decision I ever made for my life, and that includes my sex life. Is your name legally Noah? Yes. It is different in different parts of the country. It's different in different states in the US. All you need to do in the UK is get a deed poll, state which name you're changing to which name, sign it, have somebody there to witness you signing it, send it off to the passport office, and they will change your passport. To change your birth certificate, there are a bunch more steps. I haven't done that, so my birth certificate isn't changed, but my legal name is Noah Adams. In different parts of the world, it is very different. For some people, it's much easier. For some people, it's way harder. So, for me, yes, my legal name is Noah. And also, on all my IDs, it says male. It doesn't say female. Does sexuality fluctuate when doing testosterone or estrogen? I get this question a lot. I think the overwhelming consensus is that hormones won't change your sexuality, but they do change your sex drive, and also if you're transitioning because you have dysphoria, obviously going on testosterone, you will feel more comfortable with yourself after you've been on hormones for a little bit, and you're more willing to open gates that maybe would not have been opened before. At least in my experience, I could not for the life of me ever see myself being with a girl or being attracted to a girl as a girl. Because I grew up with people assuming that I was a lesbian, and that to me, for some reason, meant double girl.
Yeah, double homicide.
It's like, you're not just a girl, you're a girl that likes girl, which is like double girl, like triple girl, like combo. I can never relate to girls in the way that other girls could. And really anything feminine or girl-like would just make me uncomfortable and dysphoric, even from when I was a kid. Like, like 5 years old, I would cry if my mum took me to the girls section of H&M. I would cry if I had to have my hair tied up. I would cry if I had to wear a girls' school uniform. So until I finally got past that, where I felt comfortable with myself and where my dysphoria wasn't as bad as it was, only then could I really even consider thinking about girls in that way. And now I do. I thought I was gay, as in just into guys before I started testosterone. Now I'm very sure that I'm bi. I am very confident. And looking back, there are some feelings of when I was younger being like, oh, why do I watch this Willow Smith music video all the time? It was with my hair. I was like, why do I think she's so cool? And that was mostly just the feeling that I had, was just like, oh, this girl is really cool. And then it just stopped there. But yeah, I mean, your sex drive increases. You're probably more willing and open to do things that you wouldn't be if your sex drive wasn't as there. But yeah, I don't think hormones change your sexuality. I think it just changes your sex drive and changes your willingness to, you know, exploring things because you're more confident and more comfortable. How does presenting femininely make you feel at this time in your life? E.g. wearing skirts, dresses, or makeup? So even when I was a girl, before I knew I was trans, even as a kid, that was just like never something I was interested in. It just never fit right on me, and that still applies now. I'm wearing a crop top. It's kind of cropped. You can almost see it. To answer the question, I haven't really done that. I made a video where Kari does my makeup. I've made another video where my makeup also gets done. It just makes me feel weird. And I think that's mostly because I'm used to seeing this in the mirror, so when there's makeup over it, I'll look in the mirror and be like, who is that? Like, it's me, but I look different. In terms of, like, dresses and skirts, I pass now. Like, I don't get misgendered, so it wouldn't make me uncomfortable in the sense that, like, oh no, people are gonna think I'm a girl now. It's more just that, like, my entire life, I've seen skirts and dresses and, like, that kind of thing, as something that is like just so not me, like by definition just not me, that I never really thought about it. Maybe I'll make a video trying on dresses and skirts, but again, like, I don't want to. I think it probably would make me feel uncomfortable, but like no way near as bad as it would have been. Does being trans affect your everyday life? If I wasn't on the internet and this wasn't my job, no, probably not. If I wasn't on the internet, I would have just muted everything trans related in the news. I would have tried very, very, very hard to ignore it and not get involved and not think about it. But I guess that's more in terms of like the media and society. In terms of like my day-to-day life, myself, not really. I used to think about it 24/7. That little dysphoria itch was just there 24/7. I could never scratch it. It would never go away. Nowadays, the only way that I think about being trans is in terms of like making content or thinking about laws. I don't think about my body in terms of being trans. I don't look at myself and think, oh, my hips are too wide. I don't look at my chest and just see top surgery scars. I was worried before I got top surgery that I would look at myself in the mirror and just see scars and think, oh, you're a woman because you had to get them chopped off. I don't think that. I don't see myself like that. A lot of my friends are trans and a lot of people I hang out with are trans, so like trans stuff comes up. But it only affects my life because of the people I surround myself. If I was stealth, I would never think about being trans, to be completely honest. Can you still have an orgasm after gender reassignment surgery and HRT? In short, yes. Yes, I mean, there are complications sometimes, not very often. Unfortunately, some people do lose the ability to orgasm, but it's rare. It's not common. Everybody I know that's had bottom surgery, they have expressed to me that their first orgasm afterwards was the best thing ever. Obviously, if there's a lot of surgery going on down there, the healing time can take a while, so it may take a while until you can have your first orgasm. But I have heard great things about being able to orgasm after bottom surgery. Do you have any regrets after transitioning? I guess I have a few, but probably not in the sense that most people would think. I regret not being able to come out earlier, but I would say that like I wouldn't have been able to come out earlier in the situation that I was in. I grew up in a naval boarding school, and I didn't come out until I finished school. Maybe I regret not moving schools earlier. Maybe I regret not coming out to my mum earlier, not talking to her in as much detail as I could have about it, so that, you know, I could be like, hey mum, I want to die, and she would have taken me out of school. I regret not being able to do that, but like, there's no point regretting that because my life is the way it is. I do regret not changing from gel to libido quicker, which, in easy terms, testosterone gel is testosterone in a gel form. You rub it on your body and your body absorbs it. Libido is a long-acting shot that you get, so you get injected every 12 weeks. Different testosterones work different for different people. My levels with gel just weren't that great, and I'm on libido, and that's going great. I also regret going on hormone blockers instead of going on libido. For context, I started hormone blockers because even 5 years on testosterone, I was still getting periods because for some reason my body hates me. And the hormone blockers did stop my periods, which was great, but also after a while, I got hot flashes all the time, and I just did not enjoy having to get a shot every single month, because libido is every 12 weeks, so it's very different. But other than that, not really. Taking steps in my transition has only made my life better and made me more happy, so not many regrets, no. What are your and other trans folks you know's thoughts on detransitioning? Do you think there's any way to prevent it? Do you believe there's too much moral panic around it compared to the actual number of cases? The last question, yes, absolutely. There is definitely too much moral panic surrounding detransition compared to the amount of actual people that do detransition. The actual detransition rate of people that transition and then detransition is around 1% of people that transition. And to put that bluntly, that is a lower regret rate than a lot of other surgeries that are not gender related at all. There's a higher regret rate with knee surgeries and hip surgeries. So yes, the panic is just fear-mongering. Like, it genuinely is. I do feel bad for people that transition and then realize that transition wasn't for them, and then they have to detransition, and they're now stuck in this place where they're uncomfortable with their body in a different way. I absolutely wouldn't wish that on anybody. I want everybody to be happy with their body, and I don't feel resentment towards detransitioners because they're essentially going through the same thing that I was, except in the opposite direction. I transitioned out of dysphoria, and they transitioned into dysphoria. Are there ways that we can reduce the number of detransitioners? Yes. This may be an unpopular opinion nowadays. I don't agree in doctors telling you that you are or aren't trans. What I do think before being given hormones or any surgeries is that you should at least have a discussion about why you feel the way that you do. I think definitely if there are things in your past, like abuse, has an impact on how you would feel about your body, that's definitely something that should be explored more before going straight into hormones. I think it is still very rare for people to suddenly realize they're trans and then 2 days later start hormones, get surgery. I don't think that's the majority of people. Most of the people that do end up transitioning know that it's a big deal and do a lot of considered thought. Also, another way to reduce detransitioners is genuinely to be nicer to trans people, because a lot of that detransition rate that I gave you includes people that detransition and then later retransition. because they detransition due to lack of social support. I don't want anybody to go through what a lot of detransitioners go through. If there are ways that we can do that, then I'm all for it. Like, obviously, go through past history of abuse or trauma. But I also think that everybody should have bodily autonomy. So if you want to sign those informed consent forms 2 days after thinking that you're trans, go for it. I mean, I would not say that's the best idea at all, but it's your body, and I'm not gonna have any say in that. Why do trans people feel the need to take testosterone? My mother said that, and I can't properly articulate why. I never really understood this question, because I know that this is a thing that a lot of people get, I guess especially trans kids. They will be asked, why do you need to go on testosterone or get surgery to be a boy? Like, I already see you as a boy, we already call you a boy. Why do you need to get surgery? Why do you need to get hormones? So not everybody needs to get surgery and hormones, but the person that decides that is the trans person themselves. To answer that from a personal perspective, I needed to get on hormones because I did not want to live my entire life essentially prepubescent. Like, that is how my brain is wired. Before I started testosterone, I was a prepubescent guy. Like, my voice hadn't dropped. And I know it's not exactly that before the biological sex warriors come in, but that is how my brain is wired. I did not want to be a 40-year-old man without having a broken voice. And also, secondly, which is actually the most important one, I was so uncomfortable with my body. And before medically transitioning, I could barely leave the house. I would have panic attacks looking at myself in the mirror. If I didn't transition medically, I feel like I would just be living in purgatory. Like, that is how it felt. In between coming out and actually transitioning, I was in this state where I was like, I know entirely what I need to do in order to be happy, but I can't do that because, you know, I haven't got the medication for it. I needed top surgery because I was so uncomfortable with my chest that it made me want to die. I would bind so much that it actually damaged my health. Like, when I got top surgery, I realized how small my lung capacity had gotten. I had to do those things because not only did I want to be comfortable, but I wanted to be happy. And I think everybody deserves to be happy and deserves to be comfortable. So if you're a trans kid and your parents have ever asked that question, the answer is just like, I want to be comfortable. Like, I want to be happy. If I know for a fact that there is something that I can change in my life that can make my life so much better to be in, what a silly question that is. Was there a specific time or experience that made you realize you were trans? I get asked this question a lot, and the answer is yes and no. The answer is really that there are a few things that kind of made me realize, but there wasn't one specific moment. I think the biggest one for me is that I had watched all these videos of trans guys going on testosterone, getting their binders, you know, getting surgery, and I was like, look, I don't want to be trans. I know for certain that I'm not trans. My thing was that I did not want to be trans at all. I did not want to have to go through that. I didn't want to have to come out. I didn't want to have to go through surgeries. I didn't want to completely change my life and turn it upside down. So what I did is I ordered a binder to prove to myself that I wouldn't want to have a flat chest, even though I knew fine well I did, and that's why I bought the binder. Big moment for me was putting on the binder, seeing myself with a flat chest in the mirror, and being like, oh god. Oh god. If I knew what being trans was as a 5-year-old, I would have told my mom, hey mom, I'm trans, when I was 5. I thought boys peed facing the toilet, as in they didn't stand up, but they faced the toilet, so I would pee like a boy in my mind. If I knew what being trans was, that would have been a moment where I realized. If I knew what being trans was when I was 5, I would have realized I was trans when I went to H&M, and I cried at the thought of even wearing girls' clothes. But no, there wasn't one big moment. It was more just that I heard more about trans people, I read more about trans people, I watched more content about trans people, and I was like, oh god, this is my exact life experience. Do you notice when someone is trans? Like, cis men often claim they always notice when someone is trans, but do you? This is an interesting question, and oh god, I'm scared of the answer. When you're in the LGBT community, you have that gaydar, you have that transdar, like, you know. It takes a trans person to know a trans person. I can spot a trans person immediately. That sounds real bad. I'm not like, oh, I'm out here to clock you, but I was so hyper aware of every single specific aspect of myself, of my body, of my characteristics, of how I presented myself. I was so hyper aware of what things made me feel like I looked like a female. So that rotted my brain, essentially. So I will look for those things without even trying to look for those things in people. But that whole, like, I can always tell, that's bullshit. You can't always tell when somebody is trans. Every day I have people who say, we can always tell, think that I'm a trans woman, as in, I was born a guy trying to be a woman. Like, you can't always tell. But I will spot a trans person from a mile off. I'll smell them. I will.
Hey, it's you!
I'm sorry about that, but I just can't. But it's only obvious to me because, as I said, I was just too hyper aware. Do you feel like you pre-transition is a different person? I don't think I will ever be able to answer this question accurately. Like, I'm 24, I came out at 17, I see myself at 16 as a completely different person. I also see myself at 19 as a completely different person, and that was after I came out and transitioned. I think yes and no, I see myself pre-transition as a different person. Yes, in the sense that, like, My life experience is entirely different. I went by a different name. I was treated different by everybody in my life. There are things I do now that I could never do back then. But am I a completely different person? No. But also, yes, it's very confusing. I don't think you're gonna get the answer you want from me. I do look back on myself in a big brotherly kind of way. I do feel very disconnected from who I used to be. I don't know. Next question. Do you think it's transphobic if a straight person won't be with / in a relationship with a trans individual because they haven't had bottom surgery? No, I don't think it's transphobic. Everybody has their own preferences. They have their own sexual preferences. If the reason you don't want to be with a trans person is because you don't think that trans person is actually their gender, that's where the transphobia comes in. But if you just don't feel comfortable, you know, interacting with those genitals, that's fine by me. I'm not gonna... No trans person wants you to interact with their genitals if you're really uncomfortable with it. I don't know why people think that we want people that don't want to sleep with us to sleep with us, but sex is usually a big part of people's relationships, so if you just don't gel in that sense, then, like, yeah, you shouldn't force yourself to be with somebody just because you feel bad about not wanting to, you know... Do you think somebody has to be bisexual to date a trans person? No. I know for a fact that you don't have to be bisexual to date a trans person because there are plenty of straight people that date trans people. Dating a trans guy is not the same as dating a girl. Genitals are just genitals. Like, your sexuality isn't determined by how much you like one set of genitals over the other. It's determined by attraction. If you minimize every single person to define them purely by their genitals, then, like, that's not how dating works. In the same way that, like, you don't have to be bisexual to be attracted to a trans person. If you're a straight girl and you're attracted to me, you're still... I'm a guy. You can't see what's down here until you interact with it. Last question. So, like, you cut your titties off. Did it hurt? No! It didn't hurt because I was on a lot of medication. I was put under when they took them off, so I didn't feel that. All the nerves were, like, they weren't gone, but, like, it was just so numb that what I experienced wasn't pain, it was more discomfort. And yeah. Is that a good one to end on? I don't know. But that's the end of the video. If you have any more questions, drop them in the comments. Have a good day or don't. See you later, losers. Goodbye.